Well, these are some really nice router tables that we have here, and sometimes it's easiest if you do this when the dust collection system is turned off, and we can't really turn that off during class, but what we can do is we can open and close this blast gate up here. So right now it's open, closed, and that'll stop the suction from down below. And sometimes that just makes it easier, but you always want to make sure that the blast gate is open when you're using the machine. When you're going to change a bit, it's usually a really good idea to unplug the machine so that nothing happens. We have a variety of bits to choose from. They get stored down here in the shelves on either side of each router table, on each router table. And there's also some examples of some of the most commonly used bits up here on the wall. And so we've got the 1/4 inch bead on the top left, you got 3/8 round over bead, you got the 1/2 inch round over bead, Roman OG, Cove. Honestly not sure what the name of that one is over there. And then a 45-degree chamfer, and then a couple examples of the 1/8 inch round over. And then an example on the wall showing you which direction to pass the router when you're using a handheld router. Over here you've got, shows you how a bit is being measured for the round over, and so you can see that you got an 1/8 inch round over bit there, and it's measured by the tip of the cutting head to the ball bearing, and that's 1/8 of an inch there. So that would be the same for the 1/4 inch, 3/8 and 1/2 inch round overs up there. Anyway, so to change a bit, what we want to do first is we got to take out the throw plate, and so we have this little plastic piece to put in those holes, and then we turn it, and then we can pull it out. Sometimes you can't quite get it out in there, and so trying to manipulate it the best you can by using that or this, just depends on unlocking it and then getting that in there. Just get a little bit of leverage. Then we use this. There's 2 holes right here. One's the lock. We don't ever touch that. The locks don't work. I took those off. And then so we put it in this hole here, and as we turn that clockwise, then it lifts the router up. So this router lift is really handy and can get you some, makes it so that when you raise and lower the bit, when you're trying to get a specific cut, then it makes it really easy. Then we've got these wrenches down below where we can put the smaller one on the neck of the router down here, and then we take the larger one and put it on the collet up here, and just turn those. It'll turn, and then it'll get hard again, so you just got to turn it again, and then you can do it by hand and pull out your bit. So this is that 45-degree chamfer. It has a ball bearing up on top with a 45-degree angle. And so you want to use all of these bits. This Cove bit here has a ball bearing. You want to make sure that you use the ball bearing. That's like a fence on the router table. So you just choose whichever bit you want to use. We'll go with the 3/8 round over here, install that in, and then start tightening that up by hand. And when you get it tight by hand, you go ahead and tighten it a little harder there, and then we can start lowering the bit. And when we lower the bit, we need to make sure we go down far. And then put the throw plate back on, get it in there so it's in there all the way. So all these bits have served different purposes to put on the profiles that we looked at before. This flush trim bit here, you can see has the ball bearing is here, and the cutting heads, the cutting knives are in line with the ball bearing. So what that's going to do is make things cut flush to the ball bearing up there. And so you want to use those for the appropriate purposes. When you change the bit on here, go down, put it all together, and then my advice to you is to start low. So you want to start with the bit low, where you're not going to be cutting as much off, and then you can cut a little bit, and then you can increase the height as you go, as you progress. So I went ahead and plugged it back in since I'm done changing the bit to the bit that I want. And I also suggest that you use a practice stock before you put it on your project. So I've gone ahead and lowered that, and I'm going to put it on my practice piece and see how it goes. Notice that I'm traveling from right to left. So with a router, it's going to spin this direction. And so on the front side here, the blade is going that way. And I want to meet force with force. If I was to go from left to right and go with the same direction of the bit, then it could grab my piece and throw it off the table. So I went ahead and put a little bit of a round over on there, and that's not too much. It's not quite where I want to be, but it's a little bit. So I would go ahead and do that on my project now. And then after that, I would then take that lift and I would raise it up, maybe a turn or two. So we'll go one, that's not, got to get it in there all the way, and then raise it up. 1, 2 is enough for what I want to do, I think. And you run it through your practice piece again. Gave a pretty decent little round over there. I'm not quite getting a line there with a bead up there, so that's about where I want to be for my final pass, maybe just a little bit more. So I would go ahead and do that on my project, and then if I want that bead on there, then I'm going to go ahead and raise this up, maybe one more turn. Run that on my practice piece. There we go. That gives it a nice little bead right there with a round over. And so that's where I want to be. I'd run that on my project, and that would be my final pass. So you might run it 3 times, lifting it up 2 or 3 times as you go to get where you want to be on your final pass. That helps you avoid any tear out, especially on your Bowman box lid where you have some exotic woods that might be on the perimeter of your lid. That's going to, oftentimes it'll tear out if you go from the final depth on your first initial pass, and then you'll be really sad and upset. So make sure you go in increments as you reach your final depth. After you do that, you want to make sure you clean up your machine. You can go ahead and leave the router bit in the table because somebody else might use it, or they're going to change it depending on whatever you put in anyway. So you can just go ahead and leave it there.